The acrid smoke still rose from the ruins of Seoul 3 months after the Vethrak invasion began. Commander Park Jin-woo crouched behind the twisted remains of a military transport, his weathered face illuminated by the alien patrol craft searchlights sweeping the devastated cityscape. The reptilian Vethrak and their coalition forces had swept through human space like a plague, their energy shields rendering humanity's kinetic weapons nearly useless. "Sir, we've lost contact with the Busan-resistant cell," whispered Lieutenant Kim Soo-min, her voice barely audible through the static of their salvaged communication device. Her uniform was torn and stained, a far cry from the pristine military dress she'd worn during the first day of invasion. Jin-woo nodded grimly. The formal military structure had collapsed within weeks. Governments fell, armies scattered, and the aliens established their occupation zones with contemptuous efficiency. The Vethrak viewed humans as just another primitive species to be catalogued and controlled, another easy conquest to add to their expanding empire. The memory of that first day still burned in Jin-woo's mind. He had been at the command center when the alien ships appeared in the sky like dark clouds. Their weapons had cut through human defenses like a hot knife through butter. Tanks melted under their energy beams. Fighter jets fell from the sky like broken toys. The proud Korean military had been reduced to ash and metal in less than 6 hours. But the Vethrak had made one crucial mistake. They thought the war was over when the government surrendered. They thought humans would bow their heads and accept their new masters like sheep. The tall, green-scaled aliens walked through the streets with arrogance, their advanced armor gleaming in the sunlight. They set up their bases in the ruins of human cities and began cataloging their new slaves. What they did not understand was that humans had been fighting for survival long before they learned to build spaceships. Every human child knew stories of their ancestors who had survived when giant beasts roamed the earth. They had lived through ice that covered the world and diseases that killed millions. They had fought wars that lasted decades and rebuilt from nothing more than hope and determination. From his hidden position in the underground metro tunnels that honeycombed the Korean peninsula, Jin-woo watched the alien patrols with calculating eyes. The tunnels had become their new world. Families lived in abandoned subway cars. Children played in maintenance rooms lit by stolen alien power cells. The elderly shared stories by flickering candlelight, keeping alive the memory of what they had lost. The Vethrak patrols moved in predictable patterns. They walked the surface streets at set times, their heavy boots echoing off broken concrete. They were efficient but lazy, assuming that technology made them invincible. They never looked down into the dark holes where humans had learned to live like shadows. Sergeant Cho Hyun-woo crawled through a ventilation shaft, his small frame allowing him to move where the larger aliens could not follow. He had been a computer programmer before the invasion. Now he was their best scout, mapping alien positions and studying their routines. His notebook was filled with careful drawings of Vethrak weapons and armor, noting weak points and blind spots. They are creatures of habit, Hyun-woo had reported during their last briefing. They do the same things at the same times every day. They think we are too scared to fight back. In the deeper tunnels, Dr. Yoon Min-soo worked by the light of salvaged equipment. The former university professor had become their weapons expert by necessity. He took apart every piece of alien technology they could steal or find. His hands, once soft from years of teaching, were now callous and stained with grease and alien fluids. Their energy weapons work on a frequency we can disrupt, he had discovered after weeks of dangerous experiments. We just need the right materials. Above them, the Vethrak continued their occupation as if nothing had changed. They built their command centers in the remains of government buildings. They forced humans to work in factories, producing goods for the alien empire. They treated humans like animals, giving them just enough food to survive but not enough to fight back. Or so they thought. In reality, every day of occupation was a day of learning for the human resistance. Children too young to be noticed by alien guards carried messages between cells. Old women who seemed harmless gathered intelligence while cleaning alien facilities. Workers in the factories memorized the layout of important buildings and the schedules of key personnel. The Vethrak had won quickly because they caught humanity's conventional forces off guard. They had never faced humanity's true strength. The refusal to accept defeat, the ability to adapt, and the stubborn determination that had driven humans to survive ice ages, plagues, and countless wars throughout their history. Lieutenant Kim Soo-min looked at her commander with tired but determined eyes. She had lost her husband in the first day of fighting. Her daughter was somewhere in the underground, part of the network of children who moved supplies through tunnels too small for adults. Every day she survived was another day of defiance against the creatures who had destroyed her world. "Gather the team," Jinwoo whispered, his voice carrying the weight of months of planning and preparation. "It's time to show these aliens what they've really awakened." In the darkness of the underground, humanity were preparing to teach their conquerors a lesson they would never forget. 6 months had passed since the invasion, and Vethrak Commander Thexkar found himself requesting his third set of reinforcements, something unprecedented in his military career. The blue-scaled alien stood before a holographic display showing dozens of red markers across the human world, each representing another sabotage facility, another ambush patrol, another mysterious equipment failure. His clawed hands gripped the edge of the command table as he stared at the growing number of red dots. When he had first arrived on this primitive world, the map had been completely green, showing total Vethrak control. Now it looked like a disease was spreading across the planet, eating away at their dominance one facility at a time. "The humans don't fight like other conquered species," reported his subordinate, Lieutenant Vextor, clicking his mandibles in frustration. "They strike from shadows, vanish into their urban ruins, and somehow turn our own technology against us." Thexkar's yellow eyes narrowed. In his 40 years of military service, he had conquered 17 different worlds. The pattern was always the same: overwhelming force, quick victory, brief resistance, then acceptance. The local species would realize they were beaten and submit to Vethrak rule. Some took weeks, others took months, but they all eventually broke. But not these humans. Yesterday, Patrol Unit 7 reported their energy rifles mysteriously stopped working. Vextor continued, his voice growing more agitated. "When our technicians examined the weapons, they found small devices attached to the power cells. Devices made from human materials, but using our own energy principles." Meanwhile, deep beneath the ruins of a university in Daegu, Dr. Lee Minho carefully examined the components of a captured Vethrak energy weapon. The former quantum physicist had spent months learning to reverse-engineer alien technology in laboratories carved from subway tunnels and basement shelters. His fingers, once smooth from years of theoretical work, were now scarred from handling dangerous alien components. The underground laboratory was a maze of salvaged equipment and improvised workbenches. Human computer screens flickered next to alien diagnostic tools. Children too young to understand the complexity of the work helped by sorting components and carrying messages between workstations. Everyone had a job in the underground. Everyone contributed to the fight. "We're making progress," Minho announced to the assembled group of researchers and technicians. His assistant, Choi Yuna, looked up from her workstation where she'd been modifying human electronics with alien components. The young woman had been a graduate student before the invasion. Now she was one of their best engineers, able to make human and alien technology work together in ways that surprised even her mentor. "The energy matrix operates on principles we can understand and improve," Minho continued, holding up a modified power cell that glowed brighter than any Vethrak original. "They build their technology to be efficient and reliable. We can build it to be unpredictable and dangerous." Around the room, other teams worked on different projects. Park Soo-bin, a former electronics repair shop owner, had figured out how to jam Vethrak communications using modified cell phone towers. Kim Tae-hyung, who had once designed video games, now created computer viruses that could infiltrate alien systems through their own network connections. Above ground, what the aliens saw as random terrorist attacks was actually a sophisticated network of resistance cells sharing intelligence and resources. Each cell operated independently but stayed connected through a communication system that used everything from modified alien technology to old-fashioned methods their grandparents would have recognized. Lee Jiwon crouched in the ruins of a shopping mall, watching a Vethrak patrol through broken windows. She had been a delivery driver before the invasion, someone who knew every street and alley in the city. Now she used that knowledge to track alien movements and plan ambush routes. In her backpack, she carried small explosive devices that Minho's team had built using Vethrak power cells and human ingenuity. The patrol moved with the same arrogant confidence that all Vethrak showed. They believed their superior technology made them untouchable. They did not know that human children had been watching their routes for weeks, noting every detail, every habit, every weakness. Each small victory taught humanity more about alien weaknesses, and each defeat was analyzed and learned from. When a resistance cell was discovered and destroyed, the survivors did not despair. Instead, they studied what had gone wrong and shared that information with other cells. The underground had become humanity's university of warfare, and the aliens were unwilling teachers. Park Jin-woo received report from cells across the peninsula through an intricate communication network. In his command post deep beneath Seoul, he studied maps covered with colored pins and strings connecting different locations. Red pins showed successful operations. Blue pins marked Vethrak positions. Yellow pins indicated supply caches and safe houses. The Buzin cell successfully disabled 3 patrol vehicles yesterday, reported Sergeant Nam Do-yoon, reading from a coded message. They used the electromagnetic pulse device that Dr. Minho designed. No casualties on our side. Good. Jinwoo replied, moving pins on his map. Tell them to share the technical specifications with the other coastal cells, and remind them to change their base location. The Vethrak will investigate the attack site. The humans were learning, adapting, evolving their tactics with each encounter. What had started as desperate survival had become strategic warfare. The Vethrak had expected submission after their overwhelming victory. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a grinding war of attrition against an enemy that refused to die and grew stronger with each passing day. 1 year after the invasion, the underground factories hidden beneath the Korean mountains hummed with activity day and night. The sound of machinery echoed through tunnels that had once been subway stations and shopping centers. Workers moved between assembly lines where hybrid weapons rolled off improvised production tables. These weapons combined human engineering creativity with alien energy systems in ways the Vethrak had never imagined possible. What had begun as scattered survivors hiding in basements had evolved into a sophisticated guerrilla network that spanned continents. Messages traveled from Korea to Japan, from China to Australia, connecting resistance cells that shared knowledge and resources. The humans had built something the aliens could not understand, a network that grew stronger when attacked, that learned faster when challenged. Captain Song Hanyul crawled through the narrow ventilation shaft above the Vethrak Command Center in Incheon. Behind her, 3 other soldiers moved like shadows through the metal tunnels. Her team carried weapons that would have seemed like magic a year ago. Human rifles that fired alien energy charges. Grenades that could disrupt Vethrak shield harmonics. Communication devices that could intercept and decode alien transmissions in real time. Hanyul had been a police officer before the invasion. She knew how to move quietly, how to think like a predator hunting prey. But the weapons she carried now were beyond anything she could have imagined in her old life. The rifle strapped to her back could punch through Vethrak armor like paper. The small device on her wrist could jam alien communications across an entire city block. Target acquired, whispered Sergeant Nam Ji-hoon over their Neuralink communication system. The device in their heads allowed them to share thoughts and coordinate movements without speaking. It was another human innovation that had surprised the aliens. The Vethrak had never encountered a species that could adapt their technology so rapidly and then improve upon it. Through the ventilation grate, Hanyul could see the command center below. Blue-scaled Vethrak officers stood around holographic displays, their attention focused on reports from across the planet. They looked worried. Good. For months, these same aliens had walked through human cities like they owned them. Now they jumped at shadows and requested more guards. The assault began at exactly midnight. Hanyul's team dropped through the ceiling while 2 other squads attacked from the main corridors. The battle was swift and surgical. Human weapons fired with precision that the aliens could not match. Vethrak shields, once impenetrable, failed against modified energy frequencies that Dr. Lee Minho's teams had developed. Within minutes, Hanyul's team had reached the command ship's central computer core. The massive alien machine hummed with stored information. Data streams flowed like rivers of light through crystalline processors. This computer contained everything: Vethrak tactical databases, communication networks, supply routes, even personal files of their military commanders. Downloading now, reported Private Kimisol, her fingers dancing across both human and alien interfaces. She had been a computer programmer before learning to become a soldier. Now she was their best hacker, able to break alien codes faster than their own technicians. The aliens watching through security feeds couldn't believe what they were seeing. The primitive humans were using advanced tactical coordination that rivaled their own military doctrine. Teams moved with perfect synchronization. Their weapons fired with accuracy that their best soldiers could not match. These were not the same creatures they had conquered a year ago. Back in the underground laboratories, Dr. Lee Minho's research teams analyzed the captured data with growing excitement. Computer screens filled with alien military plans, weapon specifications, and detailed maps of Vethrak positions across the galaxy. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity could see the full scope of their enemy's empire. They are not just technologically superior, Minho explained to the Resistance leadership gathered around him in the deep tunnels beneath Seoul. They are predictable. Their military follows rigid patterns that never change. Every battle they fight uses the same tactics. Every base they build has the same layout. Now that we understand those patterns, we can counter them. The data revealed something even more important. The Vethrak were not the unstoppable force they pretended to be. Their empire was stretched thin across dozens of worlds. Their military was built for quick conquests, not long occupations. They had never faced a species that refused to surrender, that learned from every defeat and came back stronger. Commander Thexkar stood in his heavily guarded command bunker, staring at casualty reports that should have been impossible. In the past month alone, he had lost more soldiers than in his previous 10 conquests combined. Supply convoys disappeared between cities. Communication relays went offline without explanation. Patrol units reported equipment failures that their technicians could not understand or fix. Occupation duty had become a nightmare of constant attrition, supply line disruptions, and psychological warfare that his species had never encountered before. His soldiers, once confident in their technological superiority, now moved through human cities with fear in their eyes. They knew that behind every broken window, beneath every pile of rubble, human eyes were watching and planning. The Vethrak High Command faced a disturbing realization that kept their military leaders awake at night. The humans were no longer the same species they had conquered. These weren't desperate survivors hiding in caves and begging for mercy. This was an evolved, battle-hardened civilization that had learned from every defeat and emerged stronger from every setback. They had awakened something that their rigid military doctrine had no plans for, an enemy that adapted faster than they could respond. 18 months after the invasion, the edge of the solar system erupted in brilliant flashes of light as ships emerged from hyperspace. Vethrak scout vessels immediately transmitted emergency signals to their command centers, their sensors struggling to process what they were seeing. The approaching fleet looked impossible. The ships bore human design features but incorporated advanced alien technology in ways that defied everything the Vethrak understood about human capabilities. Admiral Park Minji stood on the bridge of a flagship, watching the alien scout ships flee toward Earth. She had been presumed dead during the initial invasion, her transport destroyed in the first wave of attacks. But she had survived, rescued by a passing cargo ship that had escaped the initial assault. While her brother Jinwoo fought on Earth's surface, she had spent 18 months building something the aliens never expected, a human fleet equipped with their own technology. The ships around her were a mixture of captured Vethrak vessels and human ships that had been completely rebuilt. Human engineers had studied every bolt, every wire, every energy conduit of alien technology. They had not just copied it, they had improved it. Human creativity combined with alien science had produced weapons and defenses that surpassed the originals. All units, begin Operation Sunrise. Minji broadcast on frequencies the aliens couldn't intercept. The communication system was another human innovation, using quantum encryption that the Vethrak could not break. Her brother Jinwoo's voice responded from the surface thousands of kilometers below, confirming that ground forces were ready for coordinated attack. On Earth, resistance cells that had been preparing for this moment for over a year moved into position. In underground bunkers and hidden bases, soldiers checked weapons that combined human ingenuity with alien power. Children who had spent months memoizing Vethrak patrol routes prepared to guide strike teams through enemy territory. Elderly civilians who had pretended to be helpless activated communication networks that spanned continents. The coordinated assault began at dawn across multiple continents. In Seoul, Park Jinwoo led his teams out of the subway tunnels they had called home for 18 months. The weapons they carried would have amazed their former selves. Rifles that fired energy bolts more powerful than Vethrak weapons. Armor that could deflect alien energy beams. Communication devices that allowed perfect coordination across vast distances. Human forces struck with weapons and tactics the invaders had never anticipated. The attacks came from everywhere at once. Underground tunnels of the aliens thought were empty suddenly filled with armed humans. Buildings that seemed abandoned became firing positions for weapons that cut through Vethrak defenses like knives through cloth. Vethrak energy shields, once impenetrable barriers that had made their soldiers feel invincible, failed against modified human plasma rifles. The aliens watched in horror as their most advanced defensive technology crumbled under weapons that had been built in subway stations and basement workshops by people they considered primitive. Their automated defense systems, the computer networks that control their bases and vehicles, turned against them as human hackers exploited backdoors discovered through months of careful study. Vethrak tanks stopped responding to their drivers. Communication networks broadcast human propaganda instead of military orders. Defense turrets swiveled to target alien soldiers instead of human attackers. High above Earth, Lieutenant Colonel Kang Dong-hyun led the assault on the massive Vethrak orbital platform that had controlled the invasion from space. His team moved through the station's corridors with precision that shocked alien observers. These humans fought with technological sophistication that matched or exceeded Vethrak capabilities, combined with tactical flexibility that a rigid alien military structure could never match. Dong-hyun had been a helicopter pilot before the invasion. Now he commanded soldiers who moved through space stations like they had trained all their lives. Their weapons cut through alien hull metal. Their armor protected them from the vacuum of space. Their coordination was perfect, each soldier knowing exactly where the others were and what they needed to do. "Impossible," muttered Commander Thexkai as he watched his supposedly conquered subject systematically dismantle his forces. From his command bunker deep beneath Seoul, he stared at displays showing red warning lights across the planet. Every major Vethrak installation was under attack. Every communication relay was either destroyed or controlled by humans. His orbital platforms were falling one by one. How did they advance so quickly? He asked his remaining staff, his voice filled with disbelief. A year ago, these humans had been hiding in ruins, scavenging for food and running from his patrols. Now they commanded technology that surpassed his own, fought with tactics that his military academies had never taught, and showed coordination that his species achieved only after decades of training. The answer lay in humanity's greatest strength, the ability to learn from enemies, adapt existing knowledge, and innovate under pressure. While the Vethrak had grown complacent in their technological superiority, confident that their advanced weapons made them unbeatable, humanity had spent every day of occupation studying, improving, and preparing for this moment. Every captured weapon had been examined and improved. Every alien computer system had been analyzed and mapped. Every Vethrak soldier's behavior had been observed and predicted. The humans had turned 18 months of occupation into the most intensive military education in their species' history. The aliens who had thought they faced a primitive species discovered they were fighting an evolved predator that had turned their own weapons into instruments of liberation. The hunters had become the hunted, and they were learning too late that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology, but their refusal to accept defeat. 2 years after their decisive victory, the Vethrak coalition faced something unprecedented in their 1,000-year history of conquest: total strategic defeat. The species that had conquered 17 worlds without losing a single battle now watched their empire crumble, as humans systematically dismantled their war machine and turned the galaxy's most advanced technology against its former masters. Fleet Admiral Park Min-ji stood on the bridge of the newly constructed battleship Indomitable, her hands resting on a command console that would have been impossible to imagine when the invasion began. The massive ship incorporated the best of human engineering enhanced with captured alien technology, creating something that surpassed anything the Vethrak had ever built. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces illuminated by displays showing the final collapse of alien resistance. The ship itself was a symbol of humanity's transformation. Its hull was forged from alien metals but shaped by human hands. Its weapons fired energy more focused than any Vethrak design. Its engines could cross distances that had taken the aliens weeks to travel. Every system aboard had been built by people who 2 years ago had been hiding in subway tunnels, eating scraps and hoping to survive another day. "Sir, the Vethrak High Command is requesting terms of surrender," reported Captain Hong Siwon, her voice carrying barely contained satisfaction. She had been a university student when the invasion began, someone who had never held a weapon or commanded anyone. Now she coordinated the movements of entire fleets, her tactical skills honed by 2 years of desperate warfare. Around the bridge, officers who had once hidden in subway tunnels now commanded technology that surpassed their former oppressors. Lieutenant Kim Jae-hyun, who had been a taxi driver, now controlled weapon systems that could destroy entire space stations. Ensign Park Soo-ho, once a high school teacher, managed communication networks that spanned dozens of star systems. On the main view screen, the image shifted to show Commander Park Jin-woo standing in what had once been the most secure Vethrak command center in the galaxy. The alien capital city stretched behind him, its towering spires now flying human flags. The same tunnels that had hidden human resistance fighters now served as prison for alien commanders who could not understand how they had lost everything so quickly. "They keep asking how we advanced so quickly," Jin-woo reported, his weathered face showing the strain of 2 years of constant warfare. Behind him, alien prisoners were being processed by human soldiers whose equipment and tactics had evolved beyond anything the invaders had imagined possible. They can't comprehend that their quick victory was actually their greatest mistake. The Vethrak prisoners move with the broken posture of a defeated species. These same aliens had once walked through human cities with arrogant confidence, certain that their technological superiority made them untouchable. Now they shuffled in chains, their advanced armor replaced by simple prison clothes, their weapons surrendered to humans they had once considered primitive animals. Dr. Lee Min-ho appeared on another screen, speaking from his new laboratory aboard a captured Vethrak research vessel. The former university professor now headed humanity's reverse engineering programs, leading teams that had unlocked secrets the aliens had spent centuries developing. His hair had gone gray during the occupation, but his eyes burned with the satisfaction of victory earned through years of patient work. "They mistook our initial technological disadvantage for weakness," Min-ho explained to the assembled command staff. "They never understood that humans don't stay defeated. We learn, we adapt, we evolve. Every day of their occupation was a day we grew stronger." The screens around the bridge showed the final collapse of Vethrak resistance across the galaxy. Their home world burned as human fleets systematically destroyed military installations that had once seemed untouchable. Space stations that had controlled entire star systems now served as human bases. The proud Vethrak military, which had never lost a war, was reduced to scattered remnants hiding in asteroid fields and abandoned colonies. The Vethrak, facing the extinction of their military power and the collapse of their empire, finally understood the fatal flaw in their conquest strategy. They had defeated human armies, destroyed human governments, and occupied human cities. But they had never truly defeated humanity itself. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have imagined, a species that could take any defeat and transform it into the foundation of eventual victory. In their arrogance, the aliens had provided humanity with the greatest gift possible, a teacher that showed them their own weaknesses while demonstrating advanced technology they could learn from and improve upon. Every Vethrak victory had become a human lesson. Every alien weapon had become a human opportunity for advancement. As the last Vethrak strongholds fell to human forces equipped with weapons that exceeded their former oppressors' technology, the galaxy learned a lesson that would echo through the ages. Species across dozens of star systems received the same message. Humanity was no longer a single-world civilization hiding behind primitive defenses. They had become something new, something unprecedented in galactic history. The message was simple and terrifying. Humanity's greatest strength had never been their weapons or their technology. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat, their ability to learn from any enemy, and their determination to turn any setback into the stepping stone for an even greater comeback. The aliens who had thought they defeated humanity discovered too late that they had merely provided the catalyst for humanity's transformation from a single-world species into the galaxy's newest apex predator. The lesson would not be forgotten.